Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Tales of Herding God Part 56 based on novel. So let's start. Capital City, Imperial Preceptor's Manor. The official registrar immediately rushed over and reported, Imperial Preceptor, there are unusual changes in Harmony Prefecture City. The higher-ups of Heavenly Devil Cult have all gathered in Harmony Prefecture City, and there are countless of bandits there. Suddenly the city lord's manor in Harmony Prefecture City vanished into thin air and left a plot of white land. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor was reading the memorials the Emperor sent to him and replied without even raising his head, "Got it." The official registrar hesitated and said, Imperial Preceptor, this is Heavenly Devil Cult, the #1 sect of the Devil Path. Now such an event happened under our eyes, we can't let our guard down. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor raised his head and asked, Yun Yang, do you know who is the Patriarch of Heavenly Devil Cult? Official Registrar Yun Yang shook his head. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor told him calmly, if you knew who he was, you wouldn't be so panicky. He's none other than the Grand Chancellor of our Imperial College. Official Registrar Yun Yang's heart trembled violently, and he cried out, it's him. Imperial Preceptor, the Patriarch of Heavenly Devil Cult actually has worked as the Grand Chancellor of Imperial College for so many years, this is a rebellion. How many officials and generals has he taught over so many years? His power would probably have infiltrated the Imperial courts, and even into the army. Imperial Preceptor, this matter can't go uninvestigated. Our army might already be filled with all his people. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor was speechless and shook his head, you're thinking too much. Heavenly Devil Patriarch teaches scholars, so these scholars are people of Heavenly Devil Cult. If that's the case, are you going to catch and execute me as well? He stood up and took slow strides with his sharp gaze. Back then when I was traveling around the world and learning all kinds of stuff, I saw each sect in the world do things each in its own way, and only valued what was his own. This restricted the advancement of the divine arts, paths and skills. Therefore, I decided to visit the big sects, hoping to break the barriers of them. The first person I met was Heavenly Devil Patriarch. He was the first person who threw away the sectarian bias and taught me wholeheartedly. He was also the one who pointed out a clear path for me. His eyes gave off a highly esteemed expression as he continued, after that, he personally recommended me and let me bring his letter to meet Dao Master of Dao Sect. It was also because of his letter, Dao Master saw me in a different light, and showed interest in me, allowing me to browse the 14 writings of Dao Sword. It was also him who made me go forward to Great Thunderclap Monastery to meet Rulai and attain Rulai's teachings. Even though he had never revealed his identity, he still couldn't hide it from me, nor did he try to. Official Registrar Yu Yang couldn't be more stunned. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said, I had invited him out of the mountain to help me take charge of Imperial College, so what was it for? It was not his ability nor his identity of the Patriarch of Heavenly Devil Cult. It was because he had this broad-mindedness. It was the first time I had seen such a broad-minded person, someone who was so pure. Therefore he was the only one who could take charge of Imperial College. Now that he had left, he should be busy with the next cult master of Heavenly Devil Cult. The next cult master of the Devil Cult. Official Registrar Yun Yang composed himself and said, it's already been over 40 years since Heavenly Devil Cult has no cult master, and they're actually choosing one now. Imperial Preceptor, this matter is of utmost importance, should we report it to the Emperor? Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said, write a memorial and report this matter to the Emperor. As for the background of Heavenly Devil Patriarch, there's no need for you to say anything. Official Registrar acknowledged and reported once more, there's news from Imperial College that the Emperor has given the decree for Ji Yulinwan to succeed the position of the Grand Chancellor. Got it. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor gestured with his hand and said, my power is too strong and it's natural for the Emperor to worry, else I would not be at ease. It's just that Ji Yulinwan's talent and virtue are not suitable to take up the position of Imperial College's Grand Chancellor. He is still okay being a junior protector of the Crown Prince, but he is too unfit to perform a Grand Chancellor's task. However, I can't speak much about this matter. Official Registrar pondered for a moment and said, how should we deal with the new cult master that Heavenly Devil cult has chosen? Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said indifferent, flourish if he goes along, die if he goes against. There's no need for you to bother yourself over this matter. I'll meet this new cult master personally. Official Registrar Yun Yang moved out from the room. Dao Sect, Dao Mountain. Dan Yangzi went up the mountain in quick steps and came to Dao Saint Hall. A white-haired and white-eyebrows elder was sitting there on the ground and gazing at a pool of bluish-green water in front of him. Dan Yangzi immediately said, Dao Master, unusually changes have happened in the nest of Heavenly Devil cult. The experts of Heavenly Devil cult all gathered in Harmony Prefecture and unfurled their huge flags, vanishing entirely with the City Lord's manner. The white-haired and white-eyebrows elder opened his eyes and said slowly, it seems like Heavenly Devil cult has a new cult master. Heavenly Devil cult had fabricated the history and imparted the false path under the pretense of a fake saint to bring calamity to all people. Internal conflicts arose in their cult. The saint has killed the cult master in cold blood. This violated the general principles. And the cult master married his disciple. This violated the human relationship. The cult cultivated evil skills, and there is quite a majority of them using human lives to cultivate, giving no regards to their backgrounds. They had no cult master for the past 40 years, and now a new one is chosen today. I'm afraid it ain't going to be the good fortune of the common people. Dan Yangzi asked, what should our Dao sect do? Find out the identity of this devil cult master, and wait for an opportunity to get rid of him. I received your decree. Dan Yangzi asked again, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor sets the doctrine of Heavenly Devil cult as a goal. Thus Eternal Peace Empire is practically a large-scaled Heavenly Devil cult, teaching irrespective of one's background. What should our Dao sect do then? Dao Master had a deep gaze and quietly looked at the pool of bluish-green water in front of him while saying neither too fast nor too slow. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor has a thriving ambition, but his ability can't withstand his ambition. There were larger empires than Eternal Peace Empire in the history, and even outstanding talents than Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, yet they had all turned into dust, into great ruins. This world is much more complicated than he thinks. He would know when he runs into a stone wall and gets badly battered. Dan Yangzi didn't dare to say anything else and bowed to retreat. Reporting to Rulai, Heavenly Devil cult's followers have disappeared without a trace in Harmony Prefecture, along with the City Lord's manor. Great Thunderclap Monastery, an old monk came to the throne hall seeking for Rulai to report. The magistrate of Harmony Prefecture belongs to Elder Yulin of Heavenly Devil cult, who is a terrifying figure. Harmony Prefecture has already become an iron fortress for Heavenly Devil cult. There are also people who saw the girl who had defeated Fozi in Harmony Prefecture. We guess she should be from Heavenly Devil cult. Rulai opened his eyes and asked in astonishment, isn't that girl a scholar of Imperial College? How come she's from Heavenly Devil cult? The old monk replied, that girl is called Sai Yinxiang and only entered Imperial College this year. There was absolutely no time for Imperial College to teach her anything, so how could she have the ability to defeat Fozi? This girl comes from the Sai family, which is the same family as the previous cult mistress, Sai Yuyu. Sai family is also a prestigious family in Eternal Peace Empire. Rulai asked, in that case, is the new cult master of Heavenly Devil cult from the Sai family? It's not known. There's still no news of it. Rulai nodded his head and said, Imperial College made use of the saintess of Heavenly Devil cult to defeat the holy son of our great Thunderclap Monastery. We can't leave this matter at that. You can move down, continue to make each and every monastery scout out more information. That old monk received his decree and said, there's also one more thing, Ma Wangshan has come out from great ruins. After he said these words, he turned to walk down the mountain. Old Rulai was stunned. Saint Arrival Mountain, all kinds of mysterious voices sounded beside Qin Mu's ears, which were extraordinarily marvelous. Suddenly his eyes blurred and he discovered he had become a passerby walking along the mountains, where a woodcutting sound came from afar. Walking towards the sound, he saw a woodcutter chopping firewood under a cypress pine. The axe of the woodcutter had a mysterious trace as it landed on the cypress pine time and time again, enthralling him and making him feel as if he could comprehend something from it. He stared blankly at the woodcutter's axe. That axe would create a deep mark whenever it landed on the cypress pine, but when the axe was lifted up once again, the wound of the cypress pine would return back to normal and no mark was left behind. When the woodcutter chopped the tree, every axe gave him a different impression. Passerby, after standing here to look for such a long time, what do you see? That woodcutter pulled back his axe and turned his head to look at him. Your family has already turned into skeletons buried deep under the ground. Your children have been much older than you. Your grandchildren have already started their families and have their own children. Passerby, you have stood here and looked for 100 years. May I request teacher to teach me? Qin Mu saw this woodcutter sit on the rock under the cypress pine, and he started to impart his knowledge to him. As he listened in intoxication, thousands of marvelous logics came flowing to him. Sitting beside the rock, he listened for dozens of years, and the unity technique of great educational heavenly devil scriptures was imparted to him through this wonderful lecture. That woodcutter stretched out his hand and touched the top of his head. Qin Mu opened his eyes and saw Granny Sai moving back. He was still in Saint Arrival Mountain. He was still in the present and did not go back to the past. This was the teaching of the previous cult masters of Heavenly Devil Cult, imbuing what the founding master had encountered back then, passing it down every generation, the fire never extinguishing. Qin Mu sat on the rock in a daze. The saint touched my head, binding my hair to pass me longevity. The unity technique of great educational Heavenly Devil scriptures had no words nor pictures, and it could only be passed down from one cult master to another. Numerous complicated pieces of information appeared in his mind which couldn't form a system yet. This imbue, even though had not raised his cultivation, it had brought too many things to him, and he needed to sort them out to comprehend. Now he knew why the founding master had said that this unity technique could only be passed down from cult master to cult master. This was because there was no unity technique formed in great educational Heavenly Devil scriptures. Or one could say that the unity technique was not yet formed. The unity technique of great educational Heavenly Devil scriptures was hidden in the lecture by the woodcutter on the rock. However, this required the previous cult masters to comprehend the lecture by themselves. How much they can comprehend, and what they can comprehend, would have to depend on the comprehension of the sacred cult masters themselves. They will choose their own directions, their own wisdom and their own fortunes. It could be completely said that unity technique comprehended by each sacred cult master of Heavenly Devil cult was different. Perhaps the concept would be somewhat similar, but the unity technique of each sacred cult master was definitely different from the others. 360 cult masters would have 360 cultivation methods, and 10,000 cult masters would have 10,000 cultivation methods. Qin Mu's first thought was fraud. What a fraud! The legendary unity technique actually couldn't be used just like that, and he had to comprehend it. His second thought was that this was then the true teaching, this was what it meant to be a sacred teacher. What you comprehended was yours and what you learned was others. Passing down techniques in Heavenly Saint cult had something that other sects, including Imperial College, couldn't match. The young Patriarch let out a sigh of relief and looked at Granny Sai. Cult Master Li's voice came out from Granny Sai's mouth. Teacher, I'm no longer the sacred cult master. This is my chance to break the devil in my heart. May teacher not get in my way. The young Patriarch's gaze wavered and he shook his head. You had turned yourself into a heart devil and planted yourself in her Tao heart. You should know that if she refined you, you will just be paving the way for her. No matter if she refines me or if I take over her, we'll both become one. Cult Master Li's voice traveled out. No matter if it's good or bad, it's my choice. When I decided to marry her, I had deeply known that she was the devil in my heart, and I had no choice but to get rid of her. By getting rid of her, only then can I put my mind down to seek the path and make further progress. I request teacher to help me achieve it. Qin Mu's heart leaped and he looked towards the young Patriarch. He had long known that there was a great devil in Granny Sai's heart, and this devil was extremely powerful. Even the Kakra staff of Great Thunderclap Monastery couldn't purify him. Only now did he know that the heart devil was the previous cult master, Li Qianxing. Granny Sai killed Li Qianxing, yet he turned into a heart devil and planted himself into Granny Sai's Dao heart, fighting with her over one body. In his heart, he naturally wanted to help Granny Sai refine Li Qianxing. However, the young patriarch was obviously impartial and would not have the same thoughts. No matter whether Granny Sai refined Li Qianxing or Li Qianxing took over Granny Sai's body, either was fine for the young patriarch, therefore, there was no need for him to interfere. After a while, Granny Sai got back to normal and looked cheerful as usual, as if nothing had happened. Qin Mu could see that most of the hall masters and elders in Heavenly Devil cult didn't like Granny Sai. It was probably because Granny Sai had killed Li Qianxing and made the sacred cult have no cult master to lead them for the past 40 years. With all of them scattered like sands, they had missed numerous opportunities, therefore, they kind of hated Granny Sai. The main reason Granny Sai had come forth to attend the ceremony of the cult master's ascension was Qin Mu. She was afraid that the people of the cult would bully him, therefore even if she was to face their hatred, she still had to come and support him. Imparting the unity technique or not, she didn't care at all. All she cared was Qin Mu. The young patriarch gave a sigh. Femme fatale referred to a woman like Granny Sai. Just because she was too beautiful, even if she didn't commit evil, people would still commit evil for her. It was hard for this world to contain such a beauty. Li Qianxing was worldly, the young patriarch was also worldly, and the others couldn't be exempted from being worldly as well. If she wanted to survive in this worldly world, she could only be Granny Sai and could never reveal her true appearance, not even her voice. After the ascension ceremony, the young patriarch called Qin Mu over and walked side by side with him to introduce the scenery of Saint Arrival Mountain to him. This place was Terrace of Forgotten Love, that place was Pavilion of Phoenix Arrival, the other place was Floor Under Heaven, and another place was Fish Observation Pond. He said a lot of stuff and briefed him about the history of Heavenly Devil cult. Some pages of the history of Heavenly Devil cult were very ancient, and if he didn't say it out, there won't be anyone that would know it after he died. Patriarch, why do we Heavenly Saint cult use the word ascension for taking over the new cult master's position? Qin Mu asked, isn't ascension just used for the emperor? The young patriarch looked at him and shook his head. When our Heavenly Saint cult was at its most glorious state, we had 6 empires under us, and the emperors of the 6 empires were all followers of our Heavenly Saint cult. The sacred cult master using the term ascension, which was also used for the emperors, was actually showing respect for the emperors. Things changed with the passage of time, and now the empire is the biggest sect. It's hard for a sect to make all the people become disciples of the sect, but an empire can make all the people in its borders the people of this empire. Qin Mu was deep in thought. The young patriarch led him up the mountain and said, Saint Arrival Mountain is the headquarters of our cult, and it's still a difficult task for you to enter the headquarters. This time you were sent into it by the 360 hall masters activating their teleportation flags, but as the sacred cult master, how can you not have your own ability to enter the headquarters personally? Qin Mu followed him and saw the young patriarch leading him into a great hall. The shape of the great hall could only be considered normal and wasn't the slightest luxurious like Roland's golden palace. It was only constructed out of green bricks and red tiles. When they came to the inside of the hall, Qin Mu found that the decorations were also very simple. There was only a sculpture of the saint placed inside. The young patriarch came to the saint's sculpture and offered a few incenses. Qin Mu also followed him and paid respect to the saint's sculpture. The young patriarch said, most of the elders, heavenly kings, are proficient in the art of teleportation and can return to Saint Arrival Mountain. The art of teleportation is carved on the wall of this hall, and you can take your time to comprehend it. Qin Mu looked at the wall of the palace hall and saw there was a treasure refining method on it. It was the refining method of the teleportation flags, as well as the divine arts and formation runes needed to create the teleportation flags. The young patriarch said, there are different techniques carved on each and every one of our sacred cult's great halls. There's no restriction for our disciples to learn and cultivate. There's no need to treasure a shabby broom. It's up to their abilities to master them after we impart them the techniques. You need to have magnanimity and the broad-mindedness. Qin Mu understood. The young patriarch then said, the things in great educational heavenly devil scriptures, could be imparted out, and there's no need to keep it to yourself. How much they can comprehend is up to themselves. As for the matters of the cult, the small matters will be handled by the hall masters, while the big matters will be handled by the elders. As for the bigger ones, the heavenly kings will handle them. There are also supervisors to supervise all the halls, an elder of discipline to enforce the law, elder of techniques to impart techniques. Therefore, there isn't much stuff that you have to do personally. What you have to do is to control the general direction of our heavenly saint cult. He looked at Qin Mu and asked, "So what's the first thing you are going to do now after being the sacred cult master?" Qin Mu thought for a moment and said, "To set up primary schools in each and every hall, forming the 360th hall, the school hall. Eternal peace Imperial preceptors reform established primary schools and college, which created a new profession in this world. Therefore our sacred cult will need to have one more hall. Since the sacred cult has 360 halls, I would like to build 360 primary schools to teach the cult disciples the path of cultivation." The young patriarch nodded and said, "For this matter, you can call the left and right guardians and entrust this matter to them. They will discuss it with all of the hall masters to pick out talents to form the school hall. This is how you control the general direction and delegate power to your subordinates to handle the matter. If you have to do everything personally, you do not have such a huge amount of energy, and it would hold back your advancement in cultivation." Qin Mu gasped in admiration. He suddenly had a queer thought. Heavenly Devil cult didn't seem like a cult, but more like an empire. If Eternal Peace Empire was a sect disguised as an empire, in that case, Heavenly Devil cult was an empire disguised as a sect. Heavenly Devil cult was too similar to an empire. 360 halls of all professions, and the disciples of every hall made their own livings. There was also supervisors supervising all of the halls, while the cult protector elders and cult heavenly kings formed the army which defended them against their enemies. The left and right guardian were the continued tradition of Heavenly Devil cult. With millions of Heavenly Devil cult's followers, they could completely match a small country. Of course, the followers of Heavenly Devil cult referred to themselves as Heavenly Saint cult, and not Heavenly Devil cult. There's one more thing. The young patriarch sincerely instructed him with a grave expression. "I know you like to tear things down, and had made Chancellor Ba Shan watch over you, yet he ended up letting you tear down Scholar's residence once more. You can tear down Scholar's residence, but you absolutely cannot tear down our Saint Arrival Mountain. Every hall on Saint Arrival Mountain is historical site, and there are numerous wonderful techniques carved inside the halls." Qin Mu's face turned slightly red as he muttered, "I don't tear things down frequently." "I understand. After coming to Imperial College for not more than 8 days, you had only torn things down twice or thrice before going beyond the Great Wall to tear things down." The young patriarch walked out of the hall. An elder of discipline was carrying their luggage while waiting outside. The young patriarch waved his hand to Qin Mu. "I'm leaving. Cult master, there's no need to send me off. This farewell might just be the last. No matter how far you send me off, we will still have to part ways." Qin Mu shook his head and insisted, "Even though it might be the last farewell, what I'm giving you is my token of appreciation." The young patriarch nodded his head and walked down the mountain. Qin Mu imitated step for step and followed beside them. He had lesser interaction with the young patriarch, and he wasn't like the other elders who had seen him grow up. Even though he had only spent a short time with the young patriarch, he saw something on him that was different from the villagers. Qin Mu learned a lot. In disabled elderly village, he was always a child that never grew up in the eyes of village chief and Granny Sai. Meanwhile, at Patriarch's side, he had learned to grow up. He had now become an adult. Although he escorted him 1,000 miles, yet they must part in the end. There weren't 1,000 miles from the top to the bottom of the mountain, and they had finally walked to the end. The young patriarch turned around and bowed. "Sacred cult master, no need to see me out." Qin Mu stopped and couldn't suppress sorrow in his heart as he bowed. "Farewell, patriarch." The young patriarch jumped up and leaped off the mountain. Elder of discipline also followed him down, and both of them disappeared into the vast sky. Qin Mu remained bowing for quite some time. After some time, he finally straightened up and looked at the sky above. He knew he would never see this young old man again. When Elder of Discipline came back, he would probably be bringing the ashes of this young patriarch. Death was nothing to fear. Entrusting your body to the mountain for all eternity. Perhaps the young patriarch's final wish was to become something like this saint arrival mountain. He could be considered to have accomplished that doctrine of heavenly devil, carrying out it in his entire life. Suddenly on top of Saint Arrival Mountain, the huge flags unfurled and the 360 hall masters left one after another. Qin Mu called Hu Linga over and returned to that cypress pine. There were still a few cult protector elders staying there and they all greeted with smiles when they saw him walking over, sacred cult master. Qin Mu returned the greetings. There was no one left here other than these old men and women. Granny Sai had also left, probably to send the young patriarch off. Qin Mu found the left and right guardians and brought up the matter regarding starting up the school hall. The left and right guardians were two middle-aged men with one in black and one in white. Looking at each other in the eyes, the left guardian asked, "What does Sacred Cult Master plan to let the school hall teach?" Qin Mu said, "All the techniques and divine arts in great educational heavenly devil scriptures can be taught. Also other than the school hall, we will also have to set up a floor of heavenly records on Saint Arrival Mountain. This is to gather the studies of all the sects to store them in the floor, making it easy for the disciples to browse. The simplest method is to copy all the scrolls in Imperial College's floor of heavenly records, and send them to the floor of heavenly record of our sacred cult." The left and right guardians noted it down. Qin Mu said again, "Are there any brothers of the cult who are officials in the Imperial courts? Ask them to copy down the techniques of the Imperial courts as well and send them to floor of heavenly records." "At your command." The left and right guardians asked for the detail and immediately rose. The men in white and black raised their white and black gowns over their upper bodies and they disappeared along with their gowns. They should have teleported out from Saint Arrival Mountain. Our sacred cult's teleportation method sure is powerful. Qin Mu exclaimed endlessly and quickly brought Hu Linga to the Great Hall to learn the art of teleportation. Without learning the art of teleportation, it was absolutely impossible for him to leave here. As the sacred cult master, he can't be so thick-skinned to pester others to bring him out right. Great ruins, disabled elderly village. Village chief was still sitting on the recliner along with apothecary as usual, drinking their tea slowly. Suddenly apothecary turned his body and asked, "Village chief, haven't you sat here for quite some time? It seems like you have been paralyzed here for the past 2 days, and didn't even move when the darkness invaded. You didn't return to your room to sleep. When I woke up this morning, I've already seen you lying here." Village chief squinted his eyes lazily and said, "Apothecary, your heart is in disorder. After Mua left, your heart fell into disorder." Apothecary laughed grimly, "My heart is in disorder. It's clearly your heart that's in disorder. Look at me washing up and grooming myself every day, unlike you with your messy appearance. The only difference is that you have yet died on the recliner." Village chief said, "It was clearly you who had moved me to the village entrance yesterday morning and forget to bring me back in when night fell. Isn't that because your heart in disorder? To suddenly forget something you did every day." Apothecary smiled from extreme anger, "If I had forgotten to bring you back in, can't you walk back by yourself? Don't you know how to fly back? What's the use of your exceptionally talented cultivation for?" Village chief fell silent for a moment before saying sadly, "You know that I have no legs, nor arms." Apothecary was almost driven mad. This damned old man actually didn't die from the curse and monsters in the darkness, after being left out yesterday night, and he actually still had the face to say he had no legs. He was about to argue strongly for what was right, when he suddenly raised his head. Village chief also perked up and smiled energetically, "Friends from afar, isn't that a joy? Dao friend, you are relaxed." An old and a young man came up from surging rivers downstream, and came walking towards the village. Village chief looked at apothecary and immediately said, "Where's your comb? Stop hiding it. I know you always have a comb on you, it's in your chest. Quickly take it out." I haven't washed up for 2 days, how can I meet the guests like this? Apothecary gave a sneer and remained unmoved. Village chief laughed. I'm the one who was lazy to move for the past 2 days, it's my fault. Apothecary passed the comb to him and village chief used his vital chi to control the comb, combing his hair and tidying himself up. The young patriarch and elder of discipline walked over and stopped in to greet. Village chief smiled. Disabled person is unable to return your greeting, please forgive me. Please take a seat. Apothecary, watch the tea. The young patriarch sat down and gave a smile as he looked at elder of discipline, who was standing beside him. I'm no longer the patriarch of the sacred cult. There's no need for so many rules. Sit together. Elder of discipline also sat down and placed the bamboo basket on his back at one side. Apothecary brought over the tea set and boiled a new pot of water. Putting in the tea leaves, he let it simmer for a moment before pouring tea for both people. Apothecary has the southern way of drinking tea, the young patriarch smiled. Apothecary smiled. I was born in the south, therefore, I'm used to the southern way of drinking. The northern tea is used to seeing the tea leaves bobbing up and down, while the southern tea reflects the heart of people with its clear bottom. Both have their own good points. The young patriarch smiled. No wonder the both of you oftenly sit here. Village chief, I've come to impose for a few days, are you okay with that? Before village chief could say anything, Apothecary clapped his hands and smiled. Great, simply great. After Mua left, this old man has almost bored me to death, sitting here like a paralyzed every day, not moving or talking. Village chief gave him a stare and said to the young patriarch, now that you're at your leisure, it's also pleasant to stay here for a few days to clear your mind. The young patriarch said, I admire Dao brother very much. For the sacred cult master to be groomed by all of you, he is really outstanding and extraordinary, therefore I came to consult. The sacred cult master was a natural-born overlord body and cultivates overlord body 3 elixir technique, resulting in a body of extraordinary abilities. My knowledge is lacking and didn't know that such a thing called overlord body in this world. It just so happens that I can consult Dao brother during these few days. Overlord body. Village chief and apothecary looked at each other in the eyes and suddenly burst out into laughter. The two old men weren't young anymore and they laughed with their mouths wide open and tears streaming down their faces, gasping for their breaths. Overlord body. Pooah ha ha ha. Village chief rolled off from the recliner from laughing while apothecary dropped to the ground and smacked his fists on the ground, unable to get up. The young patriarch and elder of discipline were befuddled by their laughter and elder of discipline grew apprehensive as he thought to himself, how bored are these two people usually? There was clearly nothing to laugh about yet they are gasping for their breaths from laughing. Will Patriarch and I become crazy like them if we stay here for long? Village chief paused for a moment and laid on the ground to catch his breath. Apothecary pointed at the young patriarch and laughed, we even fooled the devil cult's patriarch. Ha 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 ha. Village chief broke out into a crazy laughter again, while apothecary smacked the ground again. After some time, village chief floated back onto the recliner while his vital chi combed his messy hair. Apothecary walked slightly further and smacked the dust off his body before going to wash his face. He then took out another comb from his chest and tidied himself up, before coming up to sit down properly to apologize. Dao brothers, there are only the two of us left in the village, and we are almost bored to death. Even the hen dragon has gone out to fool around with a male and gave birth to a coop of small hen dragons. It's rare for someone to tell us a joke, therefore, we lost our composure. The young patriarch looked behind them and saw a hen dragon that was as tall as a human bringing a bunch of small hen dragons strolling around in the village. That hen dragon raised a gale as she flapped her wings. What's Overlord body all about? The young patriarch consulted humbly, may I request both of you to be generous in your teachings? My scope is indeed a little shallow. Say no more. Village chief held back his laughter, I'll tell you. After a moment, the young patriarch and elder of discipline were flabbergasted when they knew the truth. It was like they got struck by the thunder from the heavens 100 times, before getting stampeded 100 times by a herd of reckless bulls, unable to return to their senses for quite a long time. The strongest overlord body was actually the body of an ordinary person, and the strongest overlord body 3 elixir technique, was actually Daoyin technique, that the most ordinary of the ordinary people used to strengthen their bodies. Yet Qin Mu had actually managed to cultivate this technique, and thought that he was the overlord body. This was yet the crucial point. The most crucial point was that Qin Mu, who had absolutely believed it had used an ordinary body and Daoyin technique to beat up all the other talents and geniuses and made them piss their pants in terror, which was remarkably like a true overlord body. Village chief and apothecary were very pleased with themselves as they looked at each other. Village chief whispered, "Look at their expressions, exactly like what I have expected." The young patriarch let out a murky breath and had a queer expression, "So I see, so I see." However, there are indeed some problems with Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique. It's very extraordinary. Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique may be the Daoyin technique, which could be commonly seen, but it indeed has some issues. However, for people who can cultivate this technique to Mua's extent is rare among rare. I can absolutely say that there's only Mua. Village chief said with a resolute expression, "At least I have not seen any before. I suspect that this technique is a technique before Great Ruins, which should be not bad, and it was passed down and became the most ordinary Daoyin technique. But I'm not sure about it. Who would have thought that this technique would be cultivated by someone one day?" The young patriarch's gaze flickered. Or we can say that before Great Ruins turned into Great Ruins, ordinary people could also cultivate, and this Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique was the cultivation method of those ordinary people. However, because of a great unforeseen event, it resulted in ordinary people unable to cultivate. The 4 great spirit bodies appeared after that and become the mainstream now. Apothecary's heart moved slightly and asked, "If ordinary people can't cultivate, how was Mua able to cultivate? We can't just say that it was through his hard work. There are definitely people who are more hardworking in this world than him. It also can't be justified that it was because he had used up 100 more times of resources compared to other ordinary people. There might be people who are willing to spend a huge amount of resources to awaken a mortal body. In that case, there must be something he has different from other normal people." Village chief's heart leaped and said, "Maybe he was an ordinary people before the Great Ruins turned into Great Ruins." The 3 of them looked at each other in the eyes, and every one of them agreed to this idea. The young patriarch asked, "In that case, where did he, this ordinary person before the calamity, come from?" Village chief and apothecary replied in unison, "Carefree village." When they had said it, they both looked at each other in the eyes with their hearts shaking. Only Elder of Discipline's brain did not react as fast as theirs and was still puzzled, unable to take part in the conversation. "I feel that my thoughts can't catch up to theirs." Elder of Discipline had a feeling of being left out. Carefree village. The young patriarch's heart moved slightly and asked, "May I ask where is this carefree village?" Village chief gave a smiled, "No idea. But if Dao friend is interested, we can go out of the village tonight to search for it." Out of the village. The young patriarch turned his head and looked at the vast Great Ruins. His heart suddenly felt a little tense and also had a little anticipation. He had come to the correct place. He thought to himself secretly. It had been a while since he had felt such an excitement. The old scoundrels of disabled elderly village had once again made him feel the adventure, an impulse he had during his youth period. 2 old men and each had 1 foot in the grave, along with another old man, and an old and yet not old apothecary shall explore the depths of the mysterious Great Ruins at night, made him excited just thinking of it. Saint Arrival Mountain. Qin Mu instructed, "Linga, even though this mountain is the sacred ground of our heavenly saint cult, it's also my first time here, therefore I have no idea which areas are dangerous. Don't run around and wait for me to succeed in cultivating this teleportation method on the wall, then I'll bring you out." Hu Linga acknowledged and turned around to run out of this palace hall. Qin Mu sat down in front of the wall and carefully studied the teleportation method on the wall. The teleportation method on this wall was a way to refine treasure, and the runes, formations, divine arts within were all unable to be used on their own. They must be used to create the treasure, and only then could it activate the teleportation effect. This was the reason why most of the higher-ups had created teleportation flags and teleportation clothing. When the teleportation flag was unfurled, everything that the teleportation flag covered could be teleported away, being able to bring along many people. Whereas when teleportation clothing covered one's body, one could be brought away. Qin Mu carefully comprehended the marvel of the teleportation method. After one day, he finally comprehended the teleportation method on the wall, yet he started to calculate in his heart. Heavenly Devil Cult's teleportation method relied on runes to activate the formation, and the formation to activate the divine art. Because it was too complicated, it was very difficult for divine arts to execute out directly, therefore they had to refine it into a treasure to be used for teleportation. If he could directly execute the divine art, he could also achieve the result of teleportation, which would definitely be more nimble than using teleportation flags or teleportation clothing. Furthermore, after Qin Mu had comprehended for so long, he had discovered that the teleportation method actually required a more superior calculation technique. Only with higher cultivation in the method of calculation could he master the teleportation divine art even faster. I need an even superior algebra record. This video will end here.